Good morning, Year 9, and welcome to your next assembly. The theme of the week this week is trust. And as we always do, it's nice to start with an understanding of what that word means. So trust is a firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. Other words that we might use that are synonymous with the word trust could be confidence, having confidence in something or someone, having faith in someone, or having belief in them. Now, to help me with my assembly this morning, as ever, as all good English teachers do, we tend to find somebody or something that can say what we're wanting to say a little bit more eloquently than we can. So I am going back to my trusted friend Nemo, or in actual fact Nemo's dad, to help me with this assembly today. So there are several themes running through the film Finding Nemo, but today's assembly is obviously going to consider the theme of trust. So I've put the trailer on this slide for you to have a little watch, and I want you to have a think about what the film Finding Nemo tells us about trust. So I love the film Finding Nemo. I think it's absolutely hilarious. But just in case that trailer hasn't reminded you completely what the story's about, then here is a quick rundown. So Marlin, Nemo's dad, a clownfish, and he is afraid of the ocean due to previous terrible experiences. Then his son, Nemo, is taken away by divers, and Marlin sets off on a mission to find his son and to bring him home. On his journey, Marlin meets Dory. She is a fish with short-term memory loss. Dory tags along on the journey, much to Marlin's dismay, and they form a really unlikely friendship. Dory isn't really frightened of anything. She has little fear, and Marlin, who is full of fear and anxiety about all of the dangers out there, struggles to accept what she says. He gets frustrated with her, and there are several times in the film where Marlin fails to trust Dory, even though ultimately she's right. Now, one instance, and it's the picture I've put on this slide, Dory has been told by a shoal of fish to swim along a trench, not over it. So she asks Marlin to trust her because that's what friends do. However, to Marlin, the trench looks dark and frightening, so he's reluctant to go that way. Due to his fear, he convinces Dory to go against what she's been told and swim over the top. And they end up swimming into what's called a jellyfish bloom, which is basically a mass of jellyfish. And Dory gets so injured that she nearly loses her life, and she's left with scars from the encounter. And later in the film, when Dory asks Marlin to trust her again, he starts to object. He starts to refuse her and try to get her to change her mind because he doesn't quite have that trust. Then he sees the scars that were left from the jellyfish, and it reminds him that he has to trust her. Ultimately, the message here is simply trust. It's what friends do. But deeper than that, it's the idea that trust is a two-way thing. You've got to give trust and give your trust to somebody else and trust in a friend, even if it does make you feel a little bit anxious at first. But you've also got to give your trust to somebody and take your trust away from somebody. It's a two-way thing. There isn't just trust in one of you. It's got to be in both of you. But Marlin's character isn't just being a bad friend by not trusting Dory initially. And it really makes me question, and it's a good point to actually open up our assembly with some questions this morning. Why is it difficult for some people to trust others? But why is it important for us to trust people? So have a think about those two questions for me now. I know I'm somebody that can be quite like Marlin in my approach to things, where even though I'm with people that I trust wholeheartedly, I can sometimes find myself feeling quite anxious, feeling quite nervous about doing something. And the reason I've chosen this picture of rocks and jumping is because it takes me back to those moments on sort of school residentials or on PGL trips where you're asked to do a leap of faith or jump off a cliff or jump from a high rope or something, and you really have to push yourself, well I do anyway, I have to push myself out of my comfort zone in order to trust those people around me. And it's not because I don't trust them, it's because possibly sometimes I don't always trust myself. As an adult, I think actually putting yourself, like Marlin and like I just explained with me, putting yourself in sometimes what you perceive to be dangerous situations or frightening situations or situations that are scary, it's actually hard for adults to do that because they have probably always learnt that this is dangerous, don't do this. Your instinct tells you not to do something. And it's, as a teacher, being at a situation where I was in a PGL trip and all the kids were having such a great time and jumping off the rocks into the sea and jumping from the high ropes and not having any problem with it at all, I found myself being like, oh gosh, I'm so envious of younger people because they rarely have problems with sort of trusting themselves in that way, and they've not necessarily learnt the fear that I have learnt as an adult. And it actually made me think that trust, when you are born, trust is an innate quality within you. You have to trust because you are so helpless as a baby and as a young child. And small children rarely have problems trusting people because they accept that adults and people are trustworthy until they learn otherwise. And I also found this great quotation here. A bird sitting in a tree is not afraid of the branch breaking. Her trust is not with the branch, but with her own wings. And that quote really links into me thinking about how I can be very nervous in some situations and how Marlin is so nervous. He just needs to trust himself and trust that everything will be okay. Now, no matter what we do when we grow up and when we eventually leave school and perhaps go on to college or go on to a job or go on to university, no matter what we do in life, we will always find ourselves with other people and needing to build that interpersonal relationship with somebody, whether it is in the workplace, whether it is within a family, whether it is within a friendship group. You will always have another person around you. And trust is such a huge part of any relationship that you have. And in relationships, trust can often be lost because of someone's failure to do something that the other person finds important. Trusting people requires us to believe in somebody else's reliability and their truthfulness. So for me, this comes down to one thing, and that's something called transparency. Showing somebody your truth, and if you're going to, if you say you're going to do something, Trust is about doing that, when you said it, how you said you were going to do it. It's about being somebody that somebody else can rely on. If you say you're going to do something and then don't do it, that reliability has been broken and that truthfulness has been broken. And trust is so important in order to build relationships. And this quotation here is so, so true and so, so important to think about, that trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. So as much as we can build trust with other people, it's important to remember that that trust is a fragile thing. You can't just rely on that trust always being there. You have to build that trust and maintain that trust. Otherwise, it's very quick to break. Often, we learn not to trust someone as a result of a bad experience. Perhaps we've told them something in private and they've betrayed us or betrayed our trust by telling somebody else. Trust has to be earned over time. I love this equation here, that trust equals consistency over time. And trust is at the basis of every single relationship that we have. As we trust someone more, that relationship deepens. We become closer friends. And we let that person into areas of our life. And that's how long-standing friendships are made and kept, often for very many years. I'm still really good friends. In fact, they're my bridesmaids, friends from primary school. I met them when I was in reception. Another of my bridesmaids I met when I was even younger than that, aged 1 or 2. And those friendships, for me, certainly, they are like my family. And the only reason those friendships have sustained for so very long, because I'm now ancient, is because we have been consistent. We have given our time to each other. And do you know what? Have we made mistakes along the way? Have we broken each other's trust along the way? Yes, we have, because that's just human nature sometimes, that things sometimes go awry. But we've come back from that and we've put the time back in to those relationships. So you will have seen this puzzle journey before. Hopefully you will remember seeing it earlier during these digital assemblies. But we are all on a journey together to ensure that each and every single one of you succeed in life beyond your wildest dreams and expectations. That is what we want for each and every single one of you. But as it is with friendship, trust is at the very heart of that success. Now, the other image I've got on this slide is a really interesting one, because it just shows how trust is important with lots of different groups and in lots of different dimensions. So you will see very clearly that you are at the heart of every single thing that we do, and each of our focus as a school. You are at the centre of everything. That's because you're the most important people, obviously. But your trust is reliant on the 3 other units around yourselves there. So you've got your heads of year, your heads of department, your teachers, and then parents and carers at home. You're trusting in each and every one of us to ensure that we help you get there and we play our part in helping you to achieve your success. But equally, those 3 units of people, parents and carers and family and friends at home, your teachers, your heads of year, your heads of department, they, as 3 different units of people, are all putting that trust in you as well. That you are doing your part, doing your job, as well as they are each doing theirs. So this is a question that I would like you guys to focus on in your tutor your tutor time this week, which is how do you know if you are a trustworthy person? I've had a little think about what a trustworthy person looks like for me, and I would like you to think about each of these ideas within two different contexts, within the context of you as a friend and in the context of you as a student at Chertsey High. So in order for somebody to be trustworthy, for me, they need to be consistent, show compassion and humility, respect people's boundaries. I'd expect a trustworthy person to compromise sometimes and not expect something for nothing. I'd expect them to be reliable, to show gratitude, to be there for other people, to be willing to learn, and probably most importantly, to be good listeners and to communicate well. So have a little think about that now, but in your tutor sessions this week, I want you to think about how you show that you are trustworthy and show that you are able to do each of those things as a friend, but as a student. Think about how that translates into you being a trustworthy student. And maybe there might be some areas that you think, as we're moving into year 10, arguably the most important year of your education to date, are there areas that you think you could be working on from now so that you're ready and that is part of who you are as a trustworthy student in September? Okay, so just to come back to a reflection as we finish our assembly today. Mostly, we instinctively know the people who we can trust and the people who we can't trust. But sometimes our trust can be misplaced. Someone could have a very different understanding of what trust is to us. And when that person's understanding of trust and ours doesn't necessarily match up, then trust can break down. And we know that trust takes a long time to build, but only seconds to break down. So it's important that we nurture our trust, and we nurture our trust in other people, but we also nurture it in ourselves so that we become very trustworthy people, both in terms of a context of friendship and as a student. In Shakespeare's play, All's Well That Ends Well, he writes, "Love all, trust a few, and do wrong to none." And I love that quote because it kind of talks to us about the idea of who will we put our trust in? You're only trusting a few. It tells us and highlights how important that trust is. How will we know when we can trust somebody? The point is that we won't really know, and we have to take that leap of faith and trust that someone will take care of us and respect us enough not to betray us and not to betray that trust that we have placed in them. So let's just remember then that all of our relationships work on trust, whether they are in the context of your group of friends, your family, or indeed at school. So it's important that we are being trustworthy ourselves and thinking about all of those areas that we discussed what being trustworthy means. But it's also important to know that trusting others is a fragile process. We have to work hard to gain people's trust and to give people our trust. But that trust, if it all works well, can last a lifetime.